All right, we are back. Looks like my audio is coming through, so theirs should as well. And welcome everyone to episode two, a special edition on Veterans Day, episode two of the Armchair Admirals and Generals podcast. I think my hat's kind of tilted. And yeah, I'm here with my. Oh, you know what I need to do? And I forgot to do it. I need to put your names um, on your screen so everybody knows who you are. But if this is your first time watching the podcast, we we're a bunch of military veterans and active military members who like to talk about Star Citizen and aspects of Star Citizen from a military, sort of military influence and military perspective. And I have my founding members here with me. Let's see, I guess as you're looking at it, would be bottom left would be Night Cobb. Night Cobb, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Night Cop. So you can find me. I Twitch stream on occasion. Lately, a little bit more. Now that the job's kind of changed, I officially moved to shore duty. But 15 years in the Navy, submarines, as you can see by the hat. Previously served on fast attacks and Ohio class GNs. Most recently, and now I'm on shore duty. Enjoying the good life. You can find me at twitch.tv/nightcob with a 1 instead of the I because I'm super edgy that way on the internet. And I stream Star Citizen primarily, but lately I've been doing a lot of DCS while I wait for IAE and 318.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I think a lot of people are waiting for 318, myself included. And to his, I guess the bottom right, we have Attira Kell. Attira, go ahead and introduce yourself, bud.
Hey, I'm Attira Kell. I am a serving military intelligence officer who moonlighted for a few years as an armor officer, loving that tank life. My hat today, as you can see, is clearly earmarking me as a granddad because that's who wears these hats. I'm not, but it's a good hat. I've got it for when I'm like 70 and I need to introduce myself, by my hat. You can find me at YouTube/Attira Kell, all one word, and then at Attira Kell, Attira_Kell at Twitter. And yeah, glad to be here.
And if you're watching this later on YouTube, I will have the links to both of their content creation things, Twitch, YouTube, all that, in the description below for your consumption. So go ahead and give them a like and a subscribe, follow. We're also, the three of us are very active in my Discord and the Ammo Discord, which is Attira Kell's org that we have all recently joined. So if you want to chat with us, you can find us there. You can ask us questions. But yeah, we've got an interesting episode today. Before we get started, though, I just want to remind everyone that this, like all my content, it is charity driven. And so right now we're doing, we're donating to stackup.org, which is a organization that helps connect veterans and military members with video games and video game communities to help them deal with PTSD, help them get through deployments, or being away from family, like if you're stationed overseas. So it's a really great organization. And not only can you donate them directly in the chat box, but if you subscribe to my channel, if you are, if you subscribe on YouTube, like, follow, all that stuff, any and all monetization through YouTube and Twitch from my content goes to stackup.org. And so right now we are, and I forgot to add that browser source, but with Twitch, you have to get to $50 of monetization before they'll do a payout. And so we're well on our way to that. But the sooner we get to that, the sooner we can pay it out and send it over to stackup.org. So if you don't want to see ads, subscribe, and do all that. And when that day comes, I will be matching it. So if you guys, subscribe and watch, to help us get to $50 worth of monetization, when we pay it out, I will match that donation to Stack Up. So we'll give them $100 when that happens. So put your money where your mouth is. But yeah, we've got an interesting show today. We're going to be talking. We've taken your feedback. We got a lot of good feedback from the last episode. A lot of views. I mean, for my channel on YouTube, and so we really appreciate that. But the long form isn't for everybody, and so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing two more focused topics. We're going to try and keep the discussion more succinct and not as fewer tangents. And then when I upload the videos to YouTube, there will be the long form as well as the separate discussions, so that I'll break it up into this is a discussion on this is, and then the second episode will be the second discussion. And so for starting off today, we are going to be talking about the first topic of discussion will be we're going to be talking about Pyro, and specifically about the logistics and strategy regarding logistics with the upcoming Pyro system. And we're doing this, we're going to frame this sort of discussion around the idea that 4.0 is coming Q2, probably Q3 next year. And so we're going to be setting our expectations appropriately. And the first question I have...
But the community's not good at that.
Yeah. The community is not, and that's part of why I'm here. That's part of what Nazareth and I do on Pathfinders podcast, is we try to help put things into context. But yeah, so everybody's crossing their fingers. We're hoping for 4.0, mid, late next year. But I wanted to ask you guys, as far as logistics go, do you think that there are any ships logistics related that are going to make it into any of the updates now and leading up to 4.0 that are very relevant to this conversation? We've got the Starfarer for refueling, and that's really it. Do you guys think we're going to see anything else? Are you looking forward to anything else?
I want the Vulture, or not the Vulture. I'm sorry, the Aegis repair ship.
The Vulcan.
I just brain dumped it. Vulcan. Thank you. I knew it started with a V.
Yeah. That's I wrote that question. It's fine. Yes, that. we absolutely need.
I didn't mean to steal it. Sorry, I just wanted to.
It's fine. No, that's what it's there for. Yeah, I hope they surprise us with the Vulcan. However, because it's not been said it's in active production, as far as I know, and they have said the Galaxy is in active production, I think there's a refuel or something. There was something with that, some type of industrial possibility there. So maybe the Galaxy, and that is apparently in production. Maybe if we're lucky, that ship will show up and give us an additional refuel key. Although I think they should have done both.
And for those of you who are watching, if you don't follow the leaks, the RSI Galaxy is a leaked ship that is likely to be getting sold at IAE coming up in another, week away, right? I don't remember what day RSI is, but it's been leaked that it is part of IAE, and that it is not only a concept ship, but it is also a concept ship that is already in production, and it's modular. And so we're looking forward to hearing more about that, because I think that would be a great module for, because it is described as a support ship. And so like they talked about a medical module or modules. We don't know how many modules it carries. They talked about cargo, but we don't know the full extent of what modules are going to be available. So we will just have to wait and see. But, whether it's a drone module for like drone support, like a upsized Vulcan, or a dedicated refueling module, something like that. We are kind of limited when it comes to support ships. We know about the Vulcan, which is, repair, rearm, refuel with its drones. And shameless plug, if you want to know more about the Vulcan and the work on drones, Nazareth and I did a deep dive in that on the Pathfinders podcast. But yeah, so
you reposted the video on your Discord. It was nice. I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, we did a lot of investigation on that. And with drones, they are working on the tech for drones. They're going to use because the drones, they have the drones flying around in game, like in engine clips. You can see the drones in the Squadron 42 trailer. and like the Invictus launch week trailers. But you're going to they use the same flight model um, as ships, and so but it's just simplified.
Oh, the one that's getting ready to change.
Yeah, obviously very
Sorry, I'm not
thruster
trying to be
based
negative,
only,
just snarky.
but very simple. But they're supposed to be controlled with the same remote stations that you'll use for the remote tractor ship, remote vehicle-based tractor beams. So your tractor beams on like the Hull series and other ones that you interact with via console, it just pops up a video like a remote turret. That's how you'll be controlling drones. Since we know they are there has been some work on it. We just don't know to what extent. So hopefully we get more, because it's not just fuel, but
Well, it's rearm
yeah
Rearm is going to be the big one.
and repair, which
yeah
that's going to be interesting. So is it basically going to be a handheld attached repair gun, like duct taped to the bottom of the drone, and it just spews out material in like Patch's hulls?
And the question is also, does it need that recycled material composite, the RMC that they talk about, the Vulture making and the Reclaimer making?
I think they have to, because otherwise it's just another beam, and they have to get away from just another beam.
Yeah.
Well, it's still a beam, isn't it? I mean, it's a beam of RMC. It's an RMC beam.
But it's shooting. It's not like a magic beam. It's actually shooting a material. It's the inverse of salvage, which is such second material off.
Yeah.
And so it's I guess the
never say
space magic way is it's shooting it onto there, but also maybe it's like almost like a heat gun or something. However it works. At least there's something going out there. But the way they talked about the Vulcan and drones is that you'll be able to you'll have to have the right drone for the job, and you'll be able to configure them. The little grabby arms are supposed to be for you can carry ammunition, you can carry missiles with it, but then they haven't talked about the repair, and so I'm assuming that it will maybe have like a little repair nozzle because it's only supposed to be hole patching. The other question I've always wondered, and we speculated on this, was, do you guys think that the little grabby drones, like you'll be able to put components in the hull, the cargo bay of your Vulcan, and take those small size 1 components, out and use the little grabby arms on your drone, fly over to your Gladius, pull out the dead component, put a new one in? Or will you have to EVA to do that?
I think you're gonna have to. If it's a small ship, you'll have to EVA.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's a fighter, you'll have to.
Yeah.
You'll have to go into your like if it's the Scorpius, right? You go into your internal storage after you EVA out, pick up your new shield generator or power plant or whatever you have stored in there. Pull it out, find the hatch, pull let it sit in 0G, pull out the old one, throw it, pull out the new one, put it in. That's what I was
wondering, is if the drones will be able to do that, because they do have the little grabby arms. Yeah,
I think the drones will have to be able to do that. I think it'll be the same process, right? Probably hold F.
Yep.
Hold F, remove component. Little grabby arms do their work. Grab component, same thing. Insert component. There it is.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
I think that's a long time away, though.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt that's a long time away.
Well, we won't get that level of repair until we can do it as players too. But in the meantime, we'll probably you'll probably be able to equip your drones with the hole patch goo, your crack spackle.
I think one of the things that they're based on their resource management thing from CitizenCon, it sounds like they're trying to move away from, at least frequently, wholesale component replacement. It sounds like they want to repair components or replace their subcomponents when their subcomponents are damaged. I know they've talked about relays and everything like that, but it almost sounds like they specifically mentioned like if a component's subcomponents get damaged or it gets damaged. So what I kind of envision with the drones, at least the first iteration, is at best they repair components or subcomponents of a component. and they're
See, and I
not
thought
good
that
for
was
full-on
the
replacement.
subcomponents is for larger components. For small components, your little size 1 components on fighters where it's just underneath a hatch, it's not heavily protected. I've been expecting those to need replacement far more often than like the ones on the uh, say a hammerhead. Yeah, because
I mean, you might be right.
Maybe. But as far as subcomponents go, I would imagine that will be determined by quality and size.
Yeah.
So a
Because
grade
the
C
other thing they've
civilian,
talked about with components is that the larger the component it is, the larger component, the more subcomponents it has. And I don't remember if they differentiated, whether small, the size 0, size 1s will even have subcomponents or not. Well,
well, a
we'll
size
just have
0
to.
might not. I hope a size 1 has 1 to 2,
Yeah.
like with a grade A having 2 and a grade C having none.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously it's going to have to be a size 1 component to go, or subcomponent to go on that component. Right. And then go up from there.
I mean, that makes sense. I just
Yeah.
wonder if, because they talked about using the subcomponents to optimize a component, and I feel
Yes.
like it would be a shame a little bit if that didn't include size 1s for like the fighters and stuff like that. Because even if you could tweak your fighter just a little bit, maybe your fighter is a little bit more performance heavy at the expense of maintenance heavy. So maybe you burn through subcomponents or components themselves much faster, and then
Maybe a
that whole logistic.
subcomponent increases the lifespan of your component.
Exactly. So maybe you've taken a performance, level 1 component and put some subcomponents on it to give it a longer lifespan so that you can sustain life out in Pyro with military performance of, military grade components or something along those lines. I don't know. That's what I think they're kind of heading toward, but you're right. Maybe that's just something for larger components because, the truth of the matter is the larger components within ship hulls right now, you can't get out for the most part. The way they've designed most of the ships, like you can't get a size 3 component or whatever they are out of certain ships based on the doorways, the airlocks, the where they are located. Like I don't know if you can
Yep.
even get a size 2 component out of the component bays on a Vanguard right now, if it's even feasible. So
I don't.
if you
Yeah.
so in that case,
pretty
it might
tight.
be one of those things. Yeah, exactly. So maybe they're tuning that in the sense that like, okay, full scale component replacement is going to be a rare thing that we hit one day. And until that time, as we can do like hull cuts and whatever we need to do to get the larger components out, we'll introduce subcomponent damage, and you can replace the subcomponents, which are much more handheld, for those larger size components that you just can't pull out of the external bays of a fighter, which would make sense. And I'm sure the oxy cutter, kind of comes back into play here at some point in time when we have like physicalized damage and all that kind of stuff. But that's a long time away, and I feel like they're going to need something in the interim, and that makes sense to me. In the interim, to get away with it, if that's how it's, because it sounds like it's going to be a long time for physicalized damage, especially based off what they just said with ship soft def. That sounds like a we're not getting that for a while.
It's
Here's
a
this in the
precursor,
interim.
and they are working on the physicalized damage system. But that's the thing is we have no way of knowing how long that work is going to take, because there's the physicalized damage, which is a physics based system for the actual ships, in what the damage looks like on the exterior of your ship. But then there's also the physicalized damage in that your components take damage, and they need to either be repaired by replacing subcomponents or replaced. Because like you were talking about, I think with the components, not only will you have fuses that you will have to replace that get burnt out, when you get damaged, but like these subcomponents that you can customize, for whatever task, related debuff that you want, or performance related, sorry, not debuff, buff that you want. I think those will have to get replaced as well. Like if you get a short from taking damage, okay, well now you don't have that buff anymore. you know, you have to replace the subcomponent. But then if it gets completely damaged, I think the size 2s in the ships that have them, you know, if they're recent enough, are small enough that you can get them through doors. But I think size 2s are where, you know, you'll need like a Pyro multi-tool to get it, you know, because it'll be maybe too heavy to carry on your own. And then like size 3s, you'll need either a cart or the industrial tractor tool to move it, you know, pull it
Yeah,
out.
industrial tractor tool. Have you guys done a deep dive into that? Because I remember seeing a
Mhm.
sprint that ended in December
Yeah.
last year of that one,
The
or
asset is
April this year.
made, and I don't know if there's any additional work that they need to do for it in order to bring it in game. And I've been expecting them to release it with 318 along, you know, with the industrial salvage tool. And we have heard hide nor hair. The only time we've seen is we haven't they showed us the concept art, and we've seen it like in the editor, not in engine.
Yeah,
But the industrial tractor or the industrial salvage tool, when they showed us off the hand salvage like back in May, he had the industrial salvage tool on his back as he was EVAing around. So we know they're working on it. We don't know, you know, if they need additional work, because they said when they were doing the ship based salvage, they didn't want it to look like just a stretched, you know, scaled up version of hand salvage. And we don't know if they're doing anything different for the dedicated tools. But and I know a while back they have said that players will not be able to replace capital size components. If you're, you know, you'll be able to, you know, replace the
At
subcomponents
dry
of
dock.
capitals.
At dry
Yeah.
dock.
Yeah.
let's talk about dry dock, by the way.
Yeah.
When they say
Well,
dry dock, I'm like,
so I'll jump in and I'll say I was looking at the chat and Ghost said something about needing tools. Yes, all that. But I think the broader problem is as you were saying, a lot of the components don't fit through the doors that we've been given.
Yeah.
So if you try to pull an S3 power plant out of the Carrack, it's not leaving the engine bay. So
no, you're gonna have to do a hull cuts.
Which is not the intent, right? So I'm curious how they're going to rework that. We should or are supposed to be able to replace up to size 3 components manually if required.
Yeah.
Right? Which is what makes a Carrack slightly
the ones that you couldn't do, and the Carrack is.
It makes it slightly more approachable as a deep space explorer than an Odyssey, because if your capsized power plant and shields go in an Odyssey, you cannot replace them. Whereas in a Carrack, I can put some in my storage and take them back to the engine room and replace it and get myself going again. So there's a component there I don't think CIG has looked at. And maybe they have. Maybe that power plant is narrower than we think it is, and it will rotate and it will slide out the door. But the ones I've seen in don't look to be the right size, or maybe they're just barely going to slide through that door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so a common theme with power plants is, at least where I expect them to go, right? We use this in the Navy and on ships, is what they call selective tripping. So bottom line is, when you take battle damage, the idea is that your upstream fuses and components fail before the true power sources. So like your main power generators and your main bus work. Yeah, exactly, right? You want to lose the little things, the little loads that are driven by the big things before you lose the big things. So anytime you take battle damage, the idea is, okay, I'm going to lose fuses first in the fight. That's going to be one of the first things to go. And then upstream of the fuses are going to be the subcomponents attached to the components. Because I think what they're going to try and promote is one of the last things you're going to actually lose fully, or, FUBAR, damage beyond all repair, is going to be like your big component, at least in the terms of the power plants, or the bigger components. I think that with the bigger ships, they're going to try that selective tripping module, where it's going to be, all right, fuses first, and then the next thing to go is subcomponents, and then after that, it's going to be damage to the big component, but it's something you can fix.
Right.
Not something that requires wholesale replacement, or at least that would be my guess. That's how I would do it.
I guess my thought process though is if a railgun round goes through your power plant, it's going to bypass everything associated with
Oh,
that.
we're talking about the physicalized damage
talking about
aspect changes that
physicalized-
whole game.
Well, right, and that's what I'm talking about. Long term, like you're absolutely right. I think for the initial, again, we're only going to see fuses break, and then we replace that, and it's fixed, right? And those fuses are probably what's going to enable soft kill. Because if you get enough fuses damaged, the ship just shuts off. Or if you do enough hull damage, the fuses just go and the ship shuts down.
Yeah.
Now, that's cool
That seems to be
because,
what
right?
they're trying to fake for now.
Yeah, but that's great because after you repel boarders, in theory, if you have fuses on board, you can then bring everything back online and go about your way, unless someone finishes the job.
Yeah, and that's good gameplay still. I can take that in the interim while we wait
Sure.
for procedural damage. From an engineering, resource management, repair aspect, that seems to make sense to me.
But once we get to physicalized damage and we have ballistic rounds that are working their way through the hull, right? And they cut into your power plant. Well, now what do? Well, that's when we go back to the point that CIG has said we're going to be able to replace these components at size 3 and below. Okay, well, maybe you didn't think about how big these things are. Or
Well, it sounds like
and stuff.
it looks like they're
Maybe they did.
prepping because hull cuts look to be a thing. When they showed that video of salvage and they showed that you basically have a cutting tool and you can see that the Crusader, like the cockpit, had basically a line, basically for sections of the hulls. Like they'd
But you
already
would have
outlined it out.
Then have to have a plan for where, like I own a Carrack. There's no place I can imagine where you would cut through the hull to insert a new power plant.
Fair enough.
So where would I cut through the hull in engineering to put this thing in there, right? And because there's really not a place. There may be underneath the engine compartment. That may be like if you look at the back of the Carrack, directly underneath the engines on the rear of the ship. That might be the overhang where that power plant is sitting, and you could cut that out and push up a new power plant. Maybe. But then that begs the question, why the hell wouldn't you just put a hatch there?
Oh, well, that's all ship design, and that's something that they're going to have to. I know they're already going back and looking at ship design.
But you would, in real life, right? You tell me. I don't know. Wouldn't you have like plates bolted on over it, something like that? But you would be able to take those plates off if you needed to, so that you're not literally melting the hull of the ship on the way. You would just take those plates off, set them aside.
Most ships, yeah.
I don't know. You
You're not
tell
wrong.
me.
Well, most ships, right, are designed from a standpoint of, I'm gonna go back 30 or 40 years because we've actually gotten smarter about it. But 30 or 40 years ago, bottom line was there are some things that require hull cuts, but they are smart about it and they make it so that you can do a hull cut and it's not totally detrimental to the ship's integrity. So it's almost like having a designated space where it's a good place to do it. We've gotten a lot smarter about things like that, and ideally most things are hatchable. Most things will fit through the hatch, but there's always going to be some bigger components that can't fit through a hatch. We have that now. But what we've learned to do is we basically have these things that are like a hatch within a bigger hatch, and we call those logistic escape trunks. Sorry, dog was stepping on my cord, and I was trying to get him unwrapped, and he freaked out. But like these logistic escape trunks basically are a larger hatch around that smaller hatch, which require more work to remove and are long-term a little bit more logistically stringent in terms of the requirements to restore it, but it's way easier than doing a hull cut. Way less retests associated with it, way less rework, repair associated with it. So we've gotten smarter in that regard. But I mean, I don't think CIG is necessarily coming in with that mindset of logistic escape trunks and things like that. I mean, really what they need to look at is, okay, can it fit through the passageways? If not, then we've got to make it basically a sectionable piece of a hull that you can cut with, dedicated repair ships that are capable of hull cutting. then if necessary, getting it through those hull cuts. Otherwise, you're looking at a lot of interior redesign for a lot of ships.
Yeah, they definitely have to avoid that. So this was my bad because I got us on this topic thinking about the logistics of repairing components, and we segued all the way into resource management. So I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to grab.
I thought that was the
Well, we
topic
can just
for today.
continue resource
I
management.
was going to say it was the topic for today, right?
Yeah. Let's
That's
just we can hit logistics next.
topic. Yeah.
Okay.
To bring it back to the logistics, though, but there is logistics associated with repairing your ship because that's going to be an issue. You have to repair your equipment. We've got an armor officer and a Navy engineer who, like if your equipment isn't working, part of the biggest challenge is making sure your equipment continues to work when you're forward deployed, when you're on ops. And so that is
looking
one
for
of
that
the
sweet supply
logistical
system
challenges.
gameplay.
And so we initially we were talking about this, related more to fuel, but it isn't just fuel though, because I mean fuel is a big consideration. Like I linked a video in my Discord about the supply train just to keep M1 Abrams tanks refueled or keep them fueled up, and how much goes into that because those things are absolute guzzlers. And the next question that we had, we initially said, will they limit fuel? And I changed it to say, will they limit fuel and other resources at certain locations? Because those resources include components, being able to replace your components when we have physicalized components, not just being able to say, click repair. Well, okay, what if they can repair your hull, but you can't get do you think that they'll limit what components are available, or, do you think that'll be part of the simulation, either initially or otherwise? Nightcop, why don't you start off?
I hope so. I mean, I think that's the most. It builds the best gameplay. I mean, Pyro in and of itself, right? It's going to be a lawless frontier. Components are going to be hard to come by. Fuel's going to be hard to come by. So any kind of logistics are going to be that much tougher. But that's the idea of that struggle. And honestly, I want that struggle more even in the Stanton system. Like I want to have to, when you put a component on a ship that costs a lot, either in time or money to get, it's going to mean that much more to you when you lose it. It gets broken. You need a new one if you're one of the out and Pyro personnel. Like it's going to dramatically affect the way you play the game. It's going to be one thing to just take your best fighter, your best multi-crew ship out into Pyro space and expect to dominate the battlefield out there in the short term. To move it, make it your regular system, and deal with the time and the logistics to stay out there and stay out on top. Well, you're going to need good components. I doubt you're going to find military grade hardware out in the Pyro system, or at the very least, it's going to be really rare. And even just like making sure you stay refueled and rearmed. Ballistics, they're starting to retune the weapons again. Hopefully, those kind of stay at a. I kind of like their mentality of like, hey, these are really good, but logistically they are hard to maintain supplied. I'm not saying I want to keep the ammo counter so low or anything like that, but I love the idea of, man, you're really saving those ballistic rounds for when you're in a bad spot, or when it's like, okay, shields are down, kill shot time, and I use them sparingly because I know it's going to be hard in Pyro logistically just to even get new bullets. New ballistic rounds for the guns and stuff. And I want that. And I love the idea even of components, and stuff like that. It's like, I got military grade hardware in this ship. I'm going to pick and choose my fights real carefully in Pyro, because even if I get damaged in the process of making that kill, I have to know that the next fight I may not win now as a result, or I lose some of my advantages. That's what I want. I want that kind of gameplay. I want there to be rarity. And I want components to be rep gated more than anything else. God.
Components to be what more than anything else?
Reputation gated.
Oh, rep gated. Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So I'll offer something on that. You talk about ammunition being limited. Why could you not? Maybe not for smaller ships, because smaller ships it doesn't make sense. But for larger ships, that want to carry ballistics. Ships with an interior hull like a Freelancer or whatever. Why could you not purchase a box? The box has ammo, and then when you go, you have the option then to restock from your. You have to be on a pad, right? But instead of drawing from the station input or the outpost input, it draws from your. You have an option to select your ship, and then it rearms you from your ship input. So you could carry 10,000 rounds. You could carry a Freelancer Max full of ballistic ammunition, and then just resupply off that.
I think that's a great idea. Have you guys noticed, by the way, on that same line of thought, have you noticed that some of the weapons are designed to actually have ammo boxes on them? Like if you look at a
yeah, they did that ages
Gatling
and ages ago. They did that back in like 3.0, and you used to have to go in and it was horrible because the interface just did not work that well, and you had to like select the right ammo box to feed your ballistic weapon. It was horrible. They may go back that way, and I think it was bad because the interface was so twitchy at the time. But they did that. They tried that years and years ago, and they may go back to it. But yeah,
I kind of want them to on the fighter level. Yeah. If it's size 3 or below, I'm okay with that. Like, put me in EVA, reloading that little, the Gatling weapon box
on the bottom of the ship
in deep space. I'm down with it.
The bottom of the ship, so that if you get out and you land, you don't have to fly up to orbit to reload your gun. You can do it from the ground if you want to.
That's what ladders and trolleys are for. That's what ladders and trolleys are for. That's why they're doing those.
Expeditionary fighter, you may not have a ladder or a trolley.
That's true.
So for Scorpius, it has internal storage. If I want to carry 200 rounds of extra ballistic ammunition, I can't access that on the ground because it mounts from the top. Yeah.
Yeah, but think about it. You just built a reason to sacrifice cargo space in your A2 or M2, C2, whatever, to put a ladder in the cargo space.
With this silliness.
No, it's good gameplay. It's good gameplay and logistics. I love that idea.
Roll out my trolley out the back of the ship. Climb up.
Think about that. If you want to establish, though, like your A2 or whatever as a forward operating base on, you pick a Pyro moon, right? And you want to have a small contingent of fighters, a Scorpius, a Gladius, whatever. And, you bring components with you. So you stock the A2 with components. You stock it with the things you need to be able to replace the components on the ground. Like a ladder, trolleys, whatever you need, tractor beams. Now we're not just thinking about the logistics of, well, I need ammo boxes. I need components. I need the equipment necessary to repair these things in the field. And one of those is a ladder that I can use to climb up on board the Gladius.
What human ship, though? What human aircraft right now? I mean, they all require ladders for maintenance, but how many of them feed from the top of the aircraft?
Okay. Oh no! So I mean, don't get me wrong. That's a design issue.
Going though, they did show
not many.
And they did show aircraft pushing the step ladder thing across a hangar deck. So,
yeah.
So I support the concept of a step ladder. I do. There's not an aircraft. I will ask the chat if you guys know of an aircraft that literally loads its bullets from the top. Tell us, because I want to know. And how long was it? How long was it in service? I'd be fine with if I had to sit there and input a new box of ammunition into a ship. Just don't make me again. We go back to don't make me load every damn bullet at a time.
Yeah.
But
you don't have to. I could for fighters. The weapons are largely mounted on the wings or under the wings and stuff. But the component access is either on top or on the bottom. So certain things you won't be able to replace.
But those wing-mounted weapons, in theory, would have a belt run through, right? Just like in an M1, right? Your ammunition box for your coaxial machine gun is on the left side of the gun tube. The coaxial machine gun is on the right side of the gun tube. And there's a nice trough that runs all the way up and over the gun tube to the weapon system and feeds in, right? Mm-hmm. So the same thing would apply for a ballistic weapon on the end of a wing like the Scorpius, right? You're going to have a trough or a track that ammunition runs down. And 900 years in the future, I'm going to make an assumption and say that process is probably automated. but you would still have to, as Nycop says, load the crate of ammo in there.
Mhm.
The system then, right, loads it and then shifts it all the way down to the end of the weapon, chambers the round, and now you're good to go.
I could definitely, yeah, I definitely think that we'll probably have manual loading of ship-based weapons, for ballistics, obviously. Whether it's on a fighter and you have to replace the ammo crate that's in the magazine, in the body of the ship, or if you're in a larger ship, like I bet you we're gonna have a magazine in a little component bay next to the turrets on the Hammerhead, the turret stations, and you'll have to. You'll have
maybe. That'd be okay. Yeah, that'd be
because
okay.
I could see where it automatically goes from, okay, the weapon has this much on it, and then it will reload itself, automated from the internal magazine that's behind it in the hull, but you have to keep that internal magazine full. So you get 400 ballistic rounds, whatever
per crate
per turret, and then 2,000 in the magazine behind it. And so if you run dry, it's because somebody didn't run back there and refill it after somebody was not conserving their ammo. But that's it.
Well, that's you're verging now into resource management.
Yeah,
because people are resources.
Do you think that
that's the topic?
Yeah, well, we're gonna get there. I got to keep it sectionalized.
See, now I'm the taskmaster. Get back on logistics.
We are there.
No, I like the idea of that. I do. That would be fun. That would be good.
Now, do you guys think that we're going to see an increase in server population that will facilitate, logistics gameplay, or are people just going to be running back to the Pyro space stations? Because we talked about availability of things. The description on the deliverable for Pyro space station says, adding small rundown rest stop stations to the Pyro system, which provide basic services and use limited interiors. So basic services. Do you think that we're going to have people playing the logistics aspect of the game and resupplying people other than, bringing things via, to support quantum to the space stations?
No. I
get it. I'm going to disagree.
So I say yes and no, right? So not beyond fuel, because they've not said anything about giving us the ability to resupply ammo.
Mm-hmm.
So from the perspective of, I can take my handheld salvage gun, put it on reverse, and spew out a bunch of gunk and patch your hull. Okay, yes. In that, you can dock with a Starfarer and you can top off if you run out of fuel, or if you planned to run out of fuel, because you have to do that because you're in a light fighter or something. So you're going to plan to run out of fuel and have a Starfarer come pick you up and let you go the rest of the way. Sure, yeah. That's one person though, right? In that Starfarer, in deep space, in a huge, enormous system. But when you talk about planning logistics gameplay, I think you got to have two things. You got to have a player count that supports large org fights that last longer than 30 minutes. Because you got to run out of hydrogen fuel, or at least come close, so that you need to pop back and resupply, potentially have somebody patch your hull. If we stay at 110 or whatever it is now, I think it's 110, right? And you have two.
Player
is it 120 cap now?
Yeah, up to.
Yeah, they kind of maintain it around 110, but it's like they'll let it get up as high as like 120.
I've only seen 110. I guess I'm not playing enough. I should play more with you. All right, but that's 50 people per system.
Gunner bro.
That's right. Yeah, it's 50 people per system, right? So if the scaredy cats, if the space dads like me are hanging out in Stanton system, and we're in all the freaking space crazy like Avenger 1 or bebopping around freaking Pyro, just murdering everything they come across, right? Now, if it's only 120 people, unless organizations willingly get together and say, let's have a scrum, let's get in there and have a small fight, right? 50 versus 50. I think you probably won't need logistics the way we envision it. That's just my opinion. So I
Yeah.
don't know. You disagree. Let me hear it.
I'll change some of your numbers real quick because what we're talking about is Pyro. Pyro's coming with 4.0, and they're
Right.
not doing Pyro until some form of static server meshing. What they've proved right now is they can have 120 people on the same server. Now, I don't think they'll probably stick with that number for the first round of static server meshing, but let's just say I don't think they're going back down to 50 either per server.
No.
So what you're talking about really is maybe 200 people in one. What's the thing behind the client servers?
Container.
The replication
Shard?
layer. Yeah, the replication layer / shard, right? So what you're really looking at is closer to like 200. And I think what you're going to find is I don't think anybody's going to want to play that game loop, but even Avenger 1's Avenger Squadron, they're going to quickly realize that game loop is necessary. And they're going to need people to help them out. If they don't have org mates already dedicated to it, to help them out and help sustain them in their quest to dominate Pyro. I'm speaking for that group. I understand that may not be their actual quest and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I mean, I've seen how those pilots train. They're definitely making a case for it. If they want to take a system, good luck to the entity that wants to stop them.
Yeah. I guess I'll amend and say for the guys that are going to sit in the verse and do dogfight after dogfight, yeah, it might require for the guys who stick around for a few rounds and don't get blown up, like Avenger 1 himself, it might require him to have some type of refuel capability, right? Because that only makes sense. He's going to need to keep going.
You're going to want to increase your time on station because
you're going to want to increase your time on station. However, when we talk, I mean, at what point are you so damaged that you either willingly destroy yourself because there is no death of a spaceman, right? So that you can get your ship back because you're at the point of non-functionality.
Pyro, you respawn.
I think it'll be a
way
time.
Far away.
Sure. You'll spend, yeah. And there is a time investment, but you get done with it. But I mean, I guess the real thing is I don't think the guys who love to do super amazing PvP are going to be trying to do that super far away from a place they can respawn because they got a high death turnover rate. When Avenger Squadron goes out to train and they're murdering each other over and over again and guys are taking damage and it's a 10-minute loop to get back. If they're doing that in Pyro, you're right. It's like a 30-minute.
If you're not doing it just for training, because they are pushing people.
Yeah.
If you're just doing dogfighting PvP for training practice and for fun, you're not going to be doing it in the PU for much longer. That's what.
It'll be an arena commander.
Because you won't be able to sustain that with the way that they're building the PU. But if you are fighting over something in the PU, and with the way that they're building Pyro, they're making it so that you are going to be fighting over things, because the stations are at Lagrange points. And so there's a really great video about Lagrange points. I'll have to share it in Discord. But the Lagrange points are going to, because of the increased size of Pyro, the Lagrange points are going to be farther from the planets that they are attached to than the Lagrange points in Stanton, because it's based off of canceling out gravity between, like some of them are between the planet and the moon, some of them, on either end. You have null points of gravity, so that way you're in a stable orbit. And the Lagrange point stations, they're not going to have a station at every Lagrange point like we have in Stanton, because there'd be 30 of them, and there's no way anyone would have ever built a Lagrange point station at every Lagrange point in Pyro, just because there's no need. There'll be likely a handful of them. I think they only said I thought they gave us a number, but it was like single digits versus we have over 24 in Stanton. So there's going to be few of those stations, and they're going to be farther away from the planets and the moons where, there's going to be outposts and resources that players are going to, be competing over. And so if you're trying to maintain a presence over, say, they do some sort of jump town thing. There's a physical location on a planet, or a moon in Pyro, and you're trying to maintain a presence there. in order to maintain that presence, you're going to have to keep your aircraft fueled, because they won't be able to just bebop on back over to a Lagrange point because it's super far away. Your time to get there is longer, and the amount of fuel you'll waste just by going back to refuel is going to be an issue. So I think we're going to see a lot more people using Starfarers in order to keep a presence. The Starfarer will be like a short, QT away, so that way it's safe. But you're going to have to, be cycling people in and out, of keeping their fuel if you want to maintain air superiority. As well as, like we talked about, if you're already using a Starfarer for maintaining, keeping refueled, why not have a bunch of buckets of ship repair goo in there in order to keep your ships patched up?
Yeah.
Because if you're using energy, we don't have, I don't think we're going to get to the ballistic ammo reloading by then. I think it's definitely on the docket. I think a lot of more people are going to be using, energy weapons until that happens. In Pyro at least. But I think having a space-based FARP, or even landing your Starfarer nearby somewhere in order to maintain your air superiority presence while people are doing the whatever jump town style gameplay we have. I think it's going to be absolutely necessary. Because even your if you don't bring in your bigger hauling ship in order to get whatever it is that you're getting, you might need to refuel those ships as they're making their runs back and forth to wherever they take the stuff to earn the UEC.
Yeah. Honestly, it's funny that everybody keeps talking about with the new cargo refactor, hauling and stuff like that, and hauling commodities. And my big thing has been, for really the last couple patches, like, I don't think they need to worry about the quantum economy in terms of cargo refactor until they've got that further down the road. Like, give me the ability to haul, and not in the personal inventory of a ship, but missiles, guns, ship components. Like, that will create tons of gameplay when Pyro comes online without any kind of commodity system being run by Quantum. Because you're going to need new components, you're going to need new missiles, new guns, new armor. Man, the C2 pilot that can fill his hold with, fresh armor sets, fresh FS9s, fresh rail guns, missile launchers to keep the pirate orgs supplied in Pyro with the basic necessities that they need, which are mainly, the logistics of like components and, weapons and stuff like that, and missiles to reload things like an Eclipse. And that's, talk about a juicy target for another pirate org, is to take that C2 that's got a hold full of weapons. Like, that's actually more valuable than a commodity. You could make a C2, assuming you could, soft kill it, and assuming you could take all the weapons, armor, and ammo out of it. I mean, one, it's just a giant cache for your org to be successful, or two, man, what a haul if you catch them on the Stanton side of the system. Like, I don't need commodities at that point in time. Like, we already have some of the tools necessary to make hauling attractive and lucrative gameplay. And I know it's more like gun running at that point in time, but I mean, that's a kind of hauling.
Yeah,
that's kind of what, but that's kind of lends itself to the Star Citizen gameplay.
Exactly.
There's cargo runners, and then there's mercenaries who are out there to just cause havoc, and the two need each other to survive. And I think that's a great way to do it. If we could have a commodity that was missiles and ammunition and whatever else we want, armor and FPS, right? I buy a crate of 35 FS9s and all the ammo required for it. And then I haul that out and I stick that in my cargo. I could either sell it, and then the station then has that in its inventory for people to buy, or I could move it to the cargo deck that we're supposed to be able to have, where I can store mass quantities of things and stuff. And then that cargo deck, then I can draw from that a crate of ammo or a crate of whatever. And then,
or once we have persistent hangars because if you have a persistent hangar that you're storing stuff in like that, and we don't have it yet, but once org permissions become a thing, and you can set up those crates to be, okay, well, this crate is in my hangar. Everybody in my org or squad or whatever has access to that hangar. If you need to resupply, I've staged this here. Like what we talked
But I
about.
don't think that's
Attira
4.0
Kell.
thing.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But
but that's kind of what we're talking about in general right now.
It is. But I think for
within a
4.0,
ship, though, like you said, Night Cobb, within a ship, if you just park your C2, 30 kilometers away from whatever, conflict zone, you can, because we don't know what respawn is going to look like at that point, but say you have say tier 2 beds are still respawn, and you've got your Carrick over there, or you're, parked next to it, or, and you've got crates full of arms and armor in order to keep your fighting force ready to go nearby, and then you just have somebody, okay, you respawned and you're getting ferried back into the fight.
I mean, you could do that now though.
Yeah, but it's going to
right. You put a couple pieces of armor in an Aurora. You nuke the Aurora. You get the box. Then you buy all the stuff. You just keep buying the stuff. You chunk it in the thing, and then you have a crate. I'm not saying that that's the preferred solution. I'm saying you can do that now. I can imagine that's what people are going to do. Right. What people are going to do is they're going to fill up a ship, right, like a freelancer or a cuddy, with all the crap that they can take, right? They're going to fill that crate with stuff, and they're going to burn out to a safe spot somewhere in Pyro.
Well,
and then they're going to
you can buy the crates now. That's part of 318 is you can buy the crates to fill it up.
But then they're going to store that ship there. And that's going to be like, okay, every time I die and I respawn somewhere in Pyro, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to pull this ship. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to re-equip myself. Right. And then I'm going to go. And if you're in a C2 or a Carrick or something with beefy shields, you could then take that ship out, and then your entire organization can draw from that box. And, if you have a spawn bed, as you said, if it's a tier 2 bed, right, they just come back in, they go to the crate, they kit back up, and then they go back into the fight and they do what they're supposed to do. And I mean, that's logistics. That
works
now.
For FPS.
It's just uncomfortable. Well, right, and it only works for FPS, but I don't think you're not going to get
a size 9 torpedo in one of those SCU boxes.
You fold it
up.
No,
you can't.
You fold it up and you.
I don't think you can fit a size.
Cutting tool and
digital magic.
Yeah. You can't fit a size 2 missile in an SCU box. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, diagonal. I bet it would fit. Like one. One. Well, you could put like one in there. Those aren't that big. Once you hit size 3, that's right out.
And all of a sudden, boom! And you're like, oh, what happened?
Oh, yeah, no.
Physically, if it was a physical representation, I agree with you. I feel like size 1, size 2 missiles would probably fit in an SCU box. But the problem is with their silly little, this takes up 72,000 micro SCU or whatever for certain weapons and stuff like that. Like the moment you get, I think, above size 2 missiles, like you can't fit it in the inventory of a ship, the personal inventory of most ships, where it's like, man, if I could, I know I've seen that size missile, physicalized on my wing of my Gladius. I'm pretty sure I could fit 100 of these in the back of my Aegis Titan on the cargo deck, area. And it's like, I need that. And that's the big thing that we would be missing in the game in its current state, that I feel like if they could just get that in there somehow.
I guess the issue,
I don't need commodities for a while.
I guess when I say we're not going to get logistics the way we think we are, or the way we want, is they could give us a commodity box that is a rack, right? And in that rack is a stack of missiles, right? Boom, one SCU, it's about that long, yay high. It's got, let's say, 20 missiles in it. You still don't have a methodology to load it out in the verse with another player. So the most you can do is fuel, and the most you can do is patch holes and hope that a wing and a weapon wasn't lost, right? So if you lose a wing or you lose a weapon, right, you can't fix that. If players are conscientious and they keep track of what their hull's doing, and then they turn around and they run when they need to, then the guy with the industrial spray tool can patch you up, and you can do some logistics there, and you can do some fuel. I think you're right for if they do like a pyro jump town, and you've got a bunch of guys in a heavy atmosphere planet that are hovering or flying and attempting to provide air cover, then yeah, you have a good use case for fuel. But until we get to that next step where, right, you get the Vulcan and it can use a drone to hang a missile or even tier 0, dear God, tier 0. Let me put that commodity we're talking about on the Vulcan. And then when I pull up next to the Vulcan within proximity, I don't have to dock with it. He doesn't have to use drones. We're just close, right? We're within like 5 meters of each other. And then he can resupply me, right? And then I can go back into the fight, right? Tier 0, baseline resupply. That would be good. That would be amazing. And then that would really super enable the community to put a FARP out and have it be a refuel, rearm point. So when you run out of ballistics, you fly back to the Vulcan, and that guy, you get within 10 meters, he hits a button, he charges you, 1 credit per bullet, boom, boom, just like fuel, right? And away you go, and you're off. That's all it has to be, tier 0. And I don't think we're going to get that for 4.0. We might get it for like 4.5. But CIG has to be willing to not make it perfect on the first iteration so that we can get the utility of the action down and the gameplay of the action down. And then I think you're cooking with grease, man, at that point.
Mm-hmm. I don't think either of us disagree with you. I don't know. I want some kind of... I'm really just trying to figure out how to restock my Aegis Eclipse once I get out to Pyro with size 9 torpedoes without having to go and buy them myself. Like, that's the crux that I'm at.
And I think that's why they need to allow us to buy a commodity item thing and take it to that stupid station. And and then from that station, right, the trader makes profit. And then the station has X amount of size, I don't know, what is it, 9? Is that what you have?
Yeah.
9? X amount of size 9 missiles on that station that if you're lucky, right, you can go buy and restock. Right?
See, I don't want to be lucky, though.
But if they only got one left...
I want to pay my friend in the C2 to bring them to me.
Yeah. I don't think we're
right, but then how would you? Are you gonna 0G that torpedo out the back of his hold, and then like 0G it up and latch it onto the bottom of your ship?
I don't know. Like, that's the thing, that's the thing. I'm like, when they're doing this physicalized components thing, I feel like that's the next logical step that they really need to attack. Is like, well, and here I look at it as, I'm pretty sure the size 9 torpedo is already in some way, shape, or form physicalized. You can shoot it down.
They're all
sure.
The moment it leaves the hull, it's a thing.
But they'll
even in the
and missiles will end up in your ship, just lying on the ground or on the floor of your
exactly.
ship. And so if it does that, I think you can, if it's on the same system, I think you can have it. I don't think it's a huge stretch. I don't think it'll come with 4.0, but not long after, where you'll be able to use a industrial tractor beam in order to carry that. Pilot, you have to open up your hatch for your Eclipse or your Retaliator, and then like
that's some gameplay.
Grid, snap to grid. You just walk up to it, because if you have your
I don't think you'll be able to do it with size 9s. I think you need a drone for size 9. But that's why I want them to bring a Vulcan.
I think.
Well, I don't even think that will, because the industrial. Oh, you mean a handheld industrial?
Yeah, the rifle looking one.
I don't think
we were talking about earlier.
Isn't that like a torpedo from one of your submarines? And you're like, yeah, I'm gonna take my handheld. I'm gonna lift that bad boy up.
That'll be strong enough for it, but I do think that we're going to get props that will be able to do that.
I think a drone.
But they have to have some snapping to grid for it, like they do with the cargo containers.
I think that's probably right.
Just get it in the right spot. Okay, magnet, it's in there. You're good to go, because you don't have to.
Sure.
I don't think you have to. Press Q and E and with your multi-tool or whatever in order to rotate it in the right spot. As long as you're close, I think fudging it would be fine enough. But I don't think we're that far away from it. But if in the interim, like a tier 0 implementation, like Attira you were talking about, if I buy if I buy however many SU it is for, say 18 size 9 torpedoes, you've got 6 reloads for your Eclipse, and then you take it to your station, and you store it in your inventory on the station, because the station in Pyro doesn't sell size 9 torpedoes. Okay, well then I can
Yeah.
just, using the UI, I can fudge the reloading, hell, even give it a timer. I don't give a shit. In order to make it, fake like somebody's actually loading it for you. But that way you can at least reload from the station. And
Now you got a
until
point.
until we get to that point where somebody is bringing their Vulcan out with, or some other ship, in order to manually reload you, because I do think we need to get to that point, because it's going to need to happen, not only for, because I think a Vulcan will pretty easily be able to reload smaller missiles for fighters, ballistics for fighters and stuff, because the Vulcan only has 12 SCU. And they did mention when they were going through the design of the Vulcan that they could enlarge it if need be, once they put it into production, enlarge the cargo hold to give it more SCU. But even so, I don't think we'll see more than 20 SCU on the Vulcan.
But why wouldn't you have a tender ship?
Well, I think we'll get something like that. But I think the Vulcan being,
well, the tender ship is the C2. So if the C2 buys 200 size 9 missiles, right? And you park that guy, right? And we're supposed to be able to control gravity in our ship, right? So the Vulcan operator is just driving his drone in under 0G into the cargo hold. He's plucking out a size 9 torpedo, and he's gently taking it out, and he's attaching it to the bottom of the ship. I think it works. I think you're right, though. The stage one is, let me take a freelancer and move 6 torpedoes at a time out to Pyro, and then that's my personal stock of missiles until I run out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
tier
that
0,
is
then tier 1 being the Vulcan, and then
tier 1. I think should just be me getting close to a Vulcan and it working.
I don't think they're going to introduce the Vulcan without the drones functioning. There's no way.
But I guess it depends on how challenging are they going to make that drone, because we were talking about, I mean, you got grabby arms, you got all these other problems that come with that. I don't know.
Honestly, tier 0, I don't care if the drones refill me with beams.
With what?
If they beams? With beams, if they reload the weapons with beams on tier 0, who cares?
Are you saying
beans?
Beams.
Yeah.
Oh,
with an M, not beans, bullets, band-aids.
I'm thinking food.
Yeah.
It must be hungry.
I definitely think that we're going to see an advancement in the necessity for some logistical support, in Pyro, just in order to be competitive, as well as to be more profitable, because there are going to be areas where you're going to be mining in Pyro, and in order to do even economic gameplay, you're probably going to need some logistical support. But I think that they're going to have to continue to integrate things and bring more functionality in there. But I do hope that by the time we get 4.0, that you'll be able to do some of your own logistical support, where that they make it so that the stations don't they have the limited resources, just like they talked about in the description on the progress tracker. And in order to overcome that, you can bring your own resources from Stanton to Pyro, stage them, and you can at least go from there in the interim for those sorts of things, especially if it saves you money, versus paying maybe the station does have it, but they're in limited supply, and you're going to pay like 5 times the price for a size 5 or a size 9 torpedo, and you're like, okay, well, instead I'm going to ferry mine in there and do it at a cheaper rate. I'd like to see that.
So that's kind of one of the other gameplay things I expect to crop up, man. Starfarer pilots and other, we'll just start with Starfarer pilots to begin with. Like that whole idea, when the resource management system breeds out from ships to outposts, I can't even imagine how much work a Starfarer pilot's going to have when they have to actually start regularly ferrying fuel from stand to Pyro just to keep the outposts alive. I
Mhm.
look forward to that moment. You're going to see Starfarers like all the time.
Oh yeah.
And it's going to be lucrative gameplay
Well,
because the demand's going
you
to
don't
be
think
high.
you don't think the Quantum's going to keep the station reasonably?
Oh, I think the Quantum will too, but I mean, like players will see that opportunity as well. I think 9-1. I think you still got an option there to
To make
invest in
money?
that system. Yeah, to make
Yeah.
money.
Well, because it's not just logistics for your org and yourself.
Yeah,
Right.
You'll be able to use logistics ships in order to supplement the quantum, because like the quanta, the majority of the quanta haulers aren't going to risk going into Pyro. Based off the behaviors and trait system that they're building, the number of quanta who are going to be okay with that amount of risk is going to be low, and that's what's going to create that demand and lack of supply. And that
yeah,
will
yeah.
include it's going to include everything that has to get moved around, and that's going to be the other part of the economy in Pyro is like, okay, well, if Quanta is doing it in limited supply, there's a niche for players to help fill that gap and make good profits. You just have additional risk, and it's you are just like an NPC. Your own behavior traits are, oh, am I going to accept that risk in order to deliver fuel to this outpost, like you're talking about? I think it's a great example because
Yeah,
we talk
you're
about
right. The
things
AI
from
is not going to be the risk
Yeah.
friendly variety. That's like you're going to find way less than 9 that are like, yeah, you know what? I'll totally brave Pyro. Avenger Squadron's out there. Yeah, it'll be fine. They're not going to raid me for my fuel.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Are they pirates? They're not pirates. They're just PvPers, right?
Well, we need to get them on the show at one point in time. But I mean, like, it's one of those things. Like, whatever they decide to be, they're
I
going to
would
be
think Matador would
combat
be
oriented. Well, Matador,
terrifying.
yeah, too. Yeah, Matador too.
Yeah, we talk about things from a PvP perspective, or at least your player for player perspective. But there's going to be a lot of room for PvE players to provide logistical support. Because I wouldn't even be surprised if these sort of things generate missions, and contracts. Like, hey, we can't get enough fuel here. Bring
I
us
think
this
the
much
reef,
fuel.
And that's the dynamic mission system.
the refuel. Oh, you mean like dynamic missions, like the NPC is calling you
Mhm.
for fuel?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
sure.
that's
That
the idea
could
that
work.
they're going with eventually, where it's
I
like
was gonna say, I think
an
players
outpost
are gonna be
is
calling for
low.
fuel all the time.
Well,
Yeah,
that
that's-
too. But I mean, like the dynamic mission system is where they already have pre-established mission variants, where it's like all you got to do is bring fuel to this outpost because they reached a variable that says, all right, we're low, spawn the mission. Mission
Sure.
spawns. Now a Starfare pilot's got a potential lucrative contract up, and it's like, all right, well, I'm going to do that one because and maybe it increases in price based on how drastically low they are.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
why I think like it'll be one of those things.
Because
Yeah.
the other thing is the tracker system will track how much piracy or how many attacks are going on in an area, and that will factor into that calculation. So this is how
That's
much
true.
we need. This is how far it'll scale based off of, okay, this is how far it's coming from, um, and this is the the risk factor. X times X times X gives you your payout. Um, and then you just have to decide, is that payout worth it for you? And NPCs will do it based off of their risk tolerance, but players will also do it based off
It's
their
going to have to be a
tolerance.
big payout.
Oh yeah,
It's going to have to be a big payout.
yeah.
So I'm going to bring up something that I put in the notes here. The best resource that you could give to yourself for logistics gameplay is finding the most fuel efficient quantum drive.
Yeah.
Period.
Pyro is 13 AU and Stanton is 5 AU. And we were talking about this in my chat because I was looking at some videos. I think the way that they measure the size of a system on the star map is based off of the radius, not the diameter. Because Earth, the solar system on the star map is 51 AU. And the outer edge of the Kuiper belt, what's called the Kuiper cliff, where basically there's just nothing else left. The amount of objects, I think it's 100 kilometers across, just basically goes to near zero. I think that is measured at 50 AU. From the sun to the edge of the Kuiper Cliff is 50 AU. So that means the diameter of Sol is 100 AU, and the diameter of Stanton would be 5 AU, or would be 10 AU. But that's whatever the conversion is from AU, from IRL to AU to in-game AU. But it's hard to know, but we do know that the distances across Stanton are not only measured from, on the ecliptic, that level plane, but also like the jump points. A lot of the jump points aren't on the ecliptic. So you may be coming in here and going to another, to a destination on the ecliptic. And so it's actually farther than just saying it's 13 AU across, because, it's the whole triangle thing. Like, this part of the triangle is longer. So your jumps in QT, quantum travel, are going to be substantially longer. And I do think
I know you said.
Oh, go for it.
Well, so I know you said, Attira, you want, the best bet is going to be the industrial, civilian, whatever the one that gets you the most economical.
But I think the most economical, if you want to get there and minimize your trouble with fuel.
And I think that's great for, like, some players, but like me, I'm thinking about, well, my ideal would be, I want to have to make a decision, and I want the decision to be weighted on something like, okay, there's a lot of combat beacons that pop up in Pyro because it's a lawless system, and you got cargo haulers trying to do the right thing, bring an outpost that fuel and stuff like that. So next thing you know, if I'm into the PvE game and I want to make some money, like these really high payout, combat assist beacons are flying nonstop. But in a system like Pyro, what matters now is how quickly can I get there before the AI pirates destroy the people I'm flying to protect. And now I've got to play it.
Yeah, if they spawn in before you arrive, which currently they don't.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, the issue comes back to, can you get there at all?
Mm-hmm.
So
true.
I mean,
it's a choice game.
Sure it is, and I think it's going to be. Well, this particular argument comes down to, does CIG give you enough damn information in the mission before you take it to for you to make an informed decision? So, like, does it tell you where the beacon is before you accept it, so that you know if you can get there or not with the ship that you have? Because I wouldn't take
that with the new mission manager app, and the
because that's a big deal.
Yeah. Because like you said, if it's close by, and the other thing is the information doesn't travel faster than light either. And so I don't think, like we have it around the planets right now, you don't generally get missions from other planets. And eventually the dynamic mission system, I don't think you're going to get alerts for, like a combat assist on the other side of Pyro. But if you are doing that sort of gameplay, then you need the fastest drive, because you need to be able to respond in time before they get, killed, soft kill, hard kill, whatever. But if you're doing something,
and on the spawn point, on the spawn point, I'm okay with it if they just do it like they already have it for the spy satellite mission. It's a timer. Mm-hmm. You've got 20 minutes when that contract pops before it's gone. I don't care. Do it that way. A combat assist beacon where it's like, okay, it's a high threat beacon, that's a larger group of ships. You get a little bit more time, to recruit some buddies and stuff like that. But maybe the low level combat assist beacons pay more in Pyro because Pyro, and then it's a shorter timer. You want to make some more money on the short time missions. Okay, well, maybe I need to have a Starfare buddy or be in good with the fuel rats and stuff, because I use a military drive to get where I need to go on the contract before it expires.
Well, especially if you're
I don't know that you're gonna. You can't. I mean, I think that's going to come back down to planning fuel logistics, right?
Oh yeah, I agree with you. I just was saying, I think there might be a counter way that they can still incorporate choice. I just hate the idea that Pyro comes along and the idea is, okay, everybody goes to the same Atlas drive, quantum drive, because it's the most fuel efficient. You know what I mean? Like, I want there still to be a reason to be like, I need high spec military hardware, even in a place where it's challenging. But now, because I've made that choice, I have to make a logistical choice to find some way to support myself out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to get in good with a player with a Starfarer or
And I guess
a
that would
fuel
be
rat.
fine. But that would mean, but again, that comes back to if you want a military grade quantum drive that, because the Atlas is civilian. I'm looking at it now with a 2.01 efficiency. But okay, so then you are going to have somebody sitting in a Starfarer, and he can be, as Tree said, 10,000 K away, right? And you guys hub off that Starfarer until you run out of fuel, and then everybody heads back. And that may be the answer to the test, right? You put him off the main route in deep space, and only you can see him because you have the player pip, and pray that player marker doesn't go away. And then
Well, yeah.
and then you just bounce back and forth, right? And you take the mission from his location after you've tanked up. You guys shoot over, you complete it, but you're much closer to the mission area. And then you come back. Or if it's across the damn system, maybe the Starfarer goes with you, and you guys just tank up as you go.
Mm-hmm. I've been
And
exploring
then
that a lot as well. Kind of like you're not only escorting the Starfarer, but the Starfarer is keeping you tanked up along the way.
Yeah. And then he
Same
stops
with-
on the last jump, and then
Same with the
you
Vulcan,
guys.
but on a shorter hop, probably.
Yeah. And I think that's going to have to be the TTP, because we talked about what are the TTPs for logistics. It's going to have to be that, like, just that, right? The Starfarer, you escort the Starfarer, and the Starfarer keeps you fueled. He stops, one jump out, right? Maybe 10 to 20,000 K, and just kind of takes a 90-degree angle and drives away from that path of flight. And then he parks somewhere, he, she, whoever, and then you guys just go back and forth on him until you need to come back. That's going to have to be the way, because it's going to be enormous distances to cover, and that's really the only way. The only other thing is, depending on if they tweak quantum drive speeds, in theory, you could maybe put a Starfarer like in the middle of a planetary body, right? So that you can like you know how like Calliope and Euterpe are like kind of right off each other. You can put him in the middle and then just bounce back and forth off him, and just do missions around the moons.
And that makes sense. And that's
But
but that's that logistical gameplay that you've got to introduce.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe
I
it gives
agree.
you good reasons.
I pray that they give us a reason to.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
I'm not
think we're going to get
convinced
some
that
of the
they will.
reason, just not all of it. Like we're going to get some integration of logistical gameplay in a variety of manners, whether you are supporting the people that you're working with or other players, randoms, like the hey, bring me fuel, just like the medical missions. You get down and somebody calls for that. They're going to get that, and then I also think there's going to be some element of logistical support for being able to support yourself. But I think we have covered a lot in the logistics aspect of the gameplay. We also burned a little bit of time talking about resource management, and that's my fault. But we're iterating on this, so I'm going to get better as a host and a moderator. But let's beyond logistics. I want let's talk. Let's move the discussion into the resource management focused aspect of the talk today. And I wanted to ask you guys. Let's start with the costs of engineering, of having an engineer. And what is the cost versus benefit of having an engineer with resource management on your larger ship. We know that they're using the Hammerhead as the sort of test bed for the resource management system. And so if we're using the Hammerhead as an example, what are the cost benefit? What's that cost benefit relationship look like for the Hammerhead? And before I'm going to have Attira start with this discussion. Before you do that, I just want to give a shout out because I've had Gruntling gave a sub to Velocity Raptor, I believe. So I really thank
Hey.
you for the sub, and thanks for gifting that. And then Engel Shatten SC donated $15 to StackUp.org. And earlier Cromtac
Yeah.
donated another $50 to StackUp.org. So we started out with 65
Dang it.
on our campaign, and now we're at $130 donated to StackUp.org.
Last gulp.
Yeah, last
I
gulp.
have the bottle.
Yeah, I was gonna say I should have brought another one.
Are you saying
Hey,
that
thanks,
you need
guys. Thank you for your
logistical
generosity.
support for your?
I do need
for your
logistical
beverages,
support.
Beverage support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a phone? Text the missus? No? All right. Train your dog to go get you a beer out of the fridge.
I know, right? I know.
And nickname
Ghost
him
Dog's been making a lot of appearances.
That'd be amazing. Oh yeah, I see it like breach the background. It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
She's having a good time.
She's watching TV. That's her window back there.
Ah, okay. So yeah, I want to say thank you to everyone for the support, both the direct
Absolutely.
donations and the subscriptions. We really appreciate it. But yeah, Attira, what do you think the cost benefit is for having an engineer, say, on a hammerhead?
So in ammo, we have when we did a huge mining up a while back, and it was right after we'd done our. So I'm going to address cost as in pay, and then cost as in effects if you don't. And as a part of that, I just put out my legal piracy video, which talks about privateering, and I broke down I read a whole bunch to get that right, and how contracts worked back then, how a single ship would break up, how each of the crewmen were paid. So how the captain was paid, how the sponsor of that particular adventure was paid. And in this case, it would be like an organization, and then the quartermaster and all these people, right? All the way down to the able-bodied seaman who gets paid 1 or 2 shares for their participation. And we actually used that.
They did things. They swabbed the deck. They kept the ship clean. They did things.
They did things. Well, no,
It
but
wasn't
then
just participation.
his ass wasn't swabbing the deck when cannons were going off and they were taking over a ship, right? I mean, he was in combat. He was doing stuff. So
Yeah.
right, so
Yeah.
he gets a share, right? So we broke it down, and we had Juro, who's one of our smart guys who understands Excel. I can't do that. He broke it down. He created a nice matrix that we broke out. The guy doing the mining who has the most amount of risk, right? He gets X amount, right? And it's the majority. And then you have people who are escorting, people who are escorting and spotting. So some people might just hover over you. Other people are blitzing all around looking for additional nodes, right? And so they're actually hunting for you. And then they might just sit on a node, and then you come to them. And then you have passengers and gunners and things like that. Gun bros, right? Turret bros. I think that's what we decided to call the official title. Turret bros.
TVs.
And right, and so they all get like a cut of each run. So you fill up your hull, you blitz back, you put that in. That's the job. You record it on the pay chart that we have, and then it auto calculates how much each person gets, right? And then you put names on there and all that. It's the same thing, right? So if you take out a hammerhead and you've got turret bros, you've got your captain who might be the pilot, probably shouldn't be the pilot. You should probably have a pilot. And then in the second chair is the captain who's in third person, let's be real. And he's like looking for targets and trying to identify things and then popping back in. And dear God, CIG, give us a way to designate targets in our, like in the near, right? Instead of just I have to target it and hit like, what is it? Alt-1 and designate a target.
Yeah.
Silly. I don't like that.
Give us more than 3.
Yeah. Right. And then you've got an engineer, right? So you've got 2 in the cockpit, 6 if you're fully outfitting the guns, right? And then you have, so that's 8. And then you have 1 guy who's 1 to 2 guys, let's hope, that's running around doing relay. And so how you as an organization want to pay people is up to you. And we don't know what engineering gameplay is going to look like. We know that there's some aim assist for turrets. We know that gunning is a hell of a lot of fun. right? All of that factors in how much you pay someone to have a good time, right? And then, but then you got that guy who's running around. He has to know the layout of the ship perfectly. He has to know, like I was writing on here. I think we're gonna have. I hope even in tier 0 we have different quality fuses and relays that so ABC, right? And then we also have industrial, military, civilian, and each one specializes in certain things, right? Each of those relays, they have different stats that help us do different things. Well, that engineer has to know the perfect layout of the ship and how to get places quickly, where all the relays are,
Yep.
and the best relay to go in the best spot based on what his inventory is, which he's probably keeping on his person in a backpack. So he's got to then be able to run around and know when something's broken and go repair it. It's timed. It's high stress. I think he's going to get paid a lot. I think on a big ship, hold on, I'm almost done. I promise. The cost of not having that when they implement this is detrimental, because if you don't have that person doing that when you're other side, my left, your right, port side, guns go down, and then they just all hang out on that side of your ship and pound you until you go into soft kill.
Or portside shields go down.
Or portside shields go down and it fries the emitter, and he can't, there's nobody there to put in a new card and bring those back up. I think the cost of not having an engineer is going to be extreme, to the point of losing big fights all the time. So, and now I'll give it to Nycob. Sorry, long explanation.
I totally agree with you. I'll add one thing.
The S1 perspective of it as well. Logistics and finance. Yeah. Logistics
and finance, right.
So the one thing that I think is key to understand with the engineer and the gameplay that's going to come with it's because I know they've advertised mostly relays, but the other big thing that they advertised, and it was a real subtle way of doing it, because I feel like a lot of people focused on the life support system in terms of just oxygen to breathe, but they put a lot of stuff in Citizen about fires and fire management. So really what you're looking at for the engineer gameplay when they become critical is when a compartment or a piece of equipment or some bay catches on fire and compromises your ship. You want the engineer that can run around. I know. Well, I'm not gonna lie. In engineering, I mean, it's really just like, it's everybody on a submarine, because we don't have seamen. So like everybody's a trained firefighter. Everybody is trained in basic damage control for flooding, fire, all that kind of stuff. And you have to be good at that, because that is the life of the ship. If the ship catches on fire, you're all going to die. So all it takes is to spread and kill your atmosphere. Your life support systems become too overwhelmed, and it doesn't take long. On a submarine, if you can't get a fire out within the first 2 to 5 minutes, you've probably lost the ship. So really when it's going to become a really big deal for engineer and not having one, because if you don't have somebody to run around and put fires out, to change around life support systems and settings, to vent a compartment, to starve the fire or whatever, and pay attention to who's got breathing protection on. And by the way, we're definitely going to be approaching that style of Expanse gameplay where it's fine to be not in your spacesuit pre-fight, but the moment you've got a fight coming up, it's like, dude, get your gear on, because the moment the fight's on, one of the best things going to be to do is to vent the ship's atmosphere so that fires can't start within the hull. Like, no joke. That's going to be probably one of the best strategies to go with, is just like, you guys, we're all on oxygen on our suits while we're in this fight, because if there's no oxygen in the ship, then you can't start a fire. It needs oxygen to burn.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. There are fires that can burn without oxygen, right?
Yeah, but that's when
chemical fires.
But I don't think. Yeah, I was gonna say chemicals.
I think you're just giving John Crew bad ideas. You're giving him timelines, 2 to 5 minutes. No, 10. Come on, 10 minutes, John. 10. Like, oh my gosh, you're giving him all these realistic timelines. It's going to be horrible.
You're talking about your air supply though. Like, if you do vent the ship, and everybody is in their suits, I imagine that if you're doing EVA, and you have an actual spacesuit, you're going to have more air supply. But if you're just in a flight suit, what you would need to do in order to be running around doing your job and sitting in a turret, your turret bros, sitting in the pilot seat. You're not going to be wearing full on armor. You might have like a light suit, and so the amount of oxygen that you carry with you in that setting is limited. I don't think you're going to have an hour of oxygen on your baseline suit that you'll be running around operating a ship in. You'll have 15, 20 minutes or so, because you don't have a big old oxygen tank on your back, and you can only compress so much
but you
air.
should be able to have extra bottles hanging
Yeah.
off of your suit.
Yeah, you'll be able to have extra amounts, but you'll still be limited. So you not only you'll be able to vent the atmosphere in order to prevent fire from spreading, but you also, that's the risk benefit of, okay, we only have so much air attached to your suits, and we need to get this fight over with sooner rather than later, because we are going to start running low on air, especially like if you're the engineer or engineers running around doing damage control and your air consumption goes up. That's like, that is super cool risk benefit gameplay of like, okay, I don't want a fire to spread, but I also have to manage my people, in that they can only be in their vac rated suit for so long, and they can't operate the seats on a ship in a heavy EVA suit or something, or you run slow.
Well, I mean, even as it stands right now, you can't stab yourself with an oxy pin while you're in the turret.
No,
That's not a
yeah,
thing.
I was seeing somebody just stab themselves with an oxypen. That's where you got. Yeah. You can't do that. You'd have to get out of the turret.
But an engineer with an oxy pen in their hand, pretty sure they can get to you. The hammerhead turret's a little weird. You got to be able to open it. Yeah, the hammerhead turrets would be the weird one. But like some of the internal ones, like if you're on a remote turret or something like that, like somebody can come and stab you while you're in the chair.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
like that's an interesting style of gameplay there, where you've got somebody running around your ship, just like, all right, it's vented to vacuum, and somebody has to run around in the long sustained fights. Like first to mind comes Xenothreat for me. Xenothreat, you end up in a perpetual fight sequence in a ship like a Hammerhead for a long time, and that's a long time to sit there with no life support system active, refilling your suit's oxygen tanks. Now, don't be wrong. You might be able to find a break in the fight, and then that's good gameplay for an engineer who's got to like, all right, we have so much before we have to deal with another wave, get the ship's atmosphere back, so that our suits refill, our tanks refill, and then, make sure you turn it all off by the next fight. And that's a critical job now for an engineer.
You mean vent the ship for 15 minutes at a time in a ship? Mm-hmm. And repressurize. Repressurize to give. It's like a cycle, and then you vent again.
Yeah.
And then I guess the question then becomes, when you vent a ship, there's emergency venting, and then there's controlled venting. Controlled venting, in theory, 900 years in the future, self vents stuff back into the tanks so that you're not wasting O2.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then emergency venting is like all the airlocks open and it's like poof. And woe be to the sorry sap who's not aware that you're about to do that and isn't sat down and like strapped in when you blow all the air out.
It's explosive decompression at that point.
I have talked about how you will have limited air supply in order to recharge your ship if you do an explosive decompression like that. Whereas it will take longer for you to pump it back into storage tanks, but if you just vent really fast because you got ambushed or whatever, there it goes, and you can only refill your atmo so many times.
So that's a fun resource management then discussion, right? Do you have time?
And it's all engineering related.
Do you have time to pull in all the air internally so that it's effectively zero atmosphere, but you don't lose any oxygen? Mm-hmm. Or, and that's like pre-fight prep, and as you said, Night Cobb, right? Anti-fire measures. Or you get ambushed because you're not paying attention, and you don't, and now you have
to. You're on damage control. Yeah, you're
either on damage control or you immediately vent air, and now you've got a cost because you vented air. And then, do I get to have extra air oxygen tanks in my cargo hold if that happens?
So what I would envision, somebody asked this in chat too, and I'll talk about real world real quick because they were talking about like where does the oxygen come from? Like on a submarine, right? It's a self-contained atmosphere. There's no, in general, once you're deep enough, there's no access to outside atmosphere. So we have things called oxygen generators, and the oxygen generators have an output volume, that you can use to store some oxygen in air banks. But for the most part, what I expect the resource management side of atmosphere control to be in terms of life support is it's not just enough to just pump fresh oxygen into a human living space. You have to scrub that atmosphere because we build up CO2 and carbon monoxide from equipment that operates and everything like that. You have to scrub that atmosphere to keep it sustainable for humans, in addition to provide it with oxygen. So, I mean, honestly, what we're looking at is what we call in submarines scrubbers and burners, where
Watch
we
Apollo
scrub.
13.
Yeah, exactly. Apollo 13 uses the same technology and stuff like that.
Yep.
Scrubbers and burners to basically maintain that atmosphere. Those are only good for so long, and they require maintenance, and they require new pieces and parts. So you gotta refill those, you gotta reload those, and you gotta have those filtration systems for kind of a catch-all term.
The life support
basically
component
stocked.
is being worked on right now. They've been mentioning it in the monthly reports.
Yeah.
They're almost done with that system. But yeah, if you imagine, if like, how bad would that be if, your life support component takes a ballistic round through it and it's out, and
Yeah.
And you've got 15 minutes to replace it because you've ended the atmosphere and now you don't have the system to replace it. You have to go down to the cargo hold of your hammerhead, and get
Yeah,
the
not all
replacement
not all
components or
planets have friendly
subcomponents.
atmosphere, so just landing in the atmosphere is not necessarily a guarantee.
Well, and this comes back to what is the engineer doing,
Yep.
right? So he's not going to be replacing major component items. And I think you're right, Nat. You said something like
Infrequently.
infrequently replacing whole units. You'll probably have some type of subcomponent that can be replaced to fix it, right? Or a mini game to rewire it. And that's what is going to truly make engineers valuable, is a guy who understands the mini game, can play the mini game, or is carrying a large backpack with an oxygen scrubber in the back and can pull it out and then and replace it in combat. And then we got to remember, right, the Carrack has a maintenance room with like a microwave thing that repairs stuff, which is amusing to me to no end. So ultimately, how fast does that work? I don't know. But like, can we pull apart, everybody goes on life support long enough for you to stick it in the microwave, let the automated system repair the part to baseline functionality, pull it out and go reinstall it? You're not going to be doing that in combat per se, but
you might be. If you
you might be
combat long enough, and you're like, oh, we're on a timer in between waves of Xeno threat, and you've run out.
Yeah, no, that may be true. Yeah, you might have to, which is Salty's going to be pissed because, of course, the maintenance room is on the other side of the ship from the engineering section, which is poor level design, but poor ship design. But yeah, I mean, you got to pull out the scrubber, run up, stick it in the thing, let it cook, pull it out, run it back, put it in. But yeah, I don't know. But the engineer is going to have to carry spare components, crap tons of relays, crap ton of fuses, crap tons of subcomponents, and he's got to be able to replace it all.
And he's got to know the ship intimately enough to be able to get to the right location quickly and efficiently, and that's going to be huge. Like, it's not just going to be enough to be an engineer. Like, you're going to be looking for those people that are like, especially on the larger ships, like, I need a Corsair, like, knowledgeable engineer if I'm going to take that into regular combat or use it as a pirate ship like everybody envisions for it right now. Because they're going to have to know like the ins and outs of the relay network, the the damage control panels, the life support panels, and there might be some value even in learning like how quick it is to vent one particular room, how long it is to restore atmosphere in the ship once you turn all the O2 generators back on and everything like that.
Yeah, understanding how to manipulate those systems that are on your your engineering panel, because like the Hammerhead has a full-on engineering panel, and I imagine it's going to have like little apps that you can use in order to access life support, access power, access cooling. Just like for your MFD, your MFD customization that you have on fighters now. You'll be able to pull up the different app in order to do the different things, but you'll have to, if you don't know the ins and outs of those systems in order to be able to do those tasks efficiently, you're not any good to anyone.
Yeah, and somebody brought up a really good point in chat, and I don't want to ignore it because they're talking about on larger ships, you're going to need multiple. You're going to need, and I love it. Now we're really talking about ship to Navy, kind of like comparison. You're going to need a department. You're going to need an engineering department, and you're going to have a department head, an
Hey,
engineer,
Tree, have you watched my
chief
video?
engineer.
Have you watched my video on my second video on capital ship organizational construct?
I will admit I have not yet.
What about you, Knight?
No, but I'll go check it out.
I sat down with a
Yeah.
guy and talked for 3 hours, I think, about that. Departments,
Mhm.
managing.
Yeah.
You have to assign parts of the ship to people. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to plug that. I have a whole video just about this and how you manage a capital class vessel in a way that makes sense that the real Navy does.
Let's see.
So
I'll pull it up and I'll put the link in chat.
it's the part two. Part one just talks about give me my battleship, which is going to be a battle cruiser. I know, whatever. Leave me alone. And then part two is all about how to make a ship like that run.
Do you remember what it was called? I'm on your page right now.
Oh, gosh. Soldier's Opinion, Capital Ships, part two. Something like that.
Shady Phase, I saw your comment there about designated damage control teams. The world I like to live in is that everybody's responsibility is damage control. So I like the idea, especially on the smaller like gunboat size Corvette ships, like you're not going to have a huge crew, so it's not necessarily worth it to designate an entire team to damage control. But I look forward to the day when everybody realizes in the Star Citizen universe, once fires come along, that everybody's going to have to learn some form of damage control and how to be effective at it in order to
It's
be
kind of like
successful on multi-cruise ships.
Medical works, right now, like I'm a 68 Whiskey Fox 2. I'm a flight paramedic. I'm as high as it gets in the medic world in the Army, but everybody, is running around with an infantry first aid kit. And so if you're a crew member of the ship, you should have like a basic, the absolute basics to, do damage control in your area. You may not be a specialist in the system like the engineer or have the dedicated tools for it, but at least if you have, a pyro,
you know how to use a fire extinguisher, hopefully by that point.
If you're the ship's captain, you might have it be a policy, just for your crew that says, hey, everybody will have a pyro multi-tool or whatever in order to be able to, do immediate damage control. Like, because I could see like an attachment for the pyro multi-tool for a fire extinguisher. You don't have the big one, you have the little one, or you keep a pyro multi-tool with these attachments so that way you can do immediate damage control while the engineer is doing the systems related stuff and then comes in to do the higher end. We've been talking a lot about damage, and life support. And I, again, shameless plug, I did a big old spectrum pulse scanner anomaly thing on Pathfinders about quantum travel and quantum drives. But what about performance in your ship as far as the engineering, gameplay, and resource management? I think we're all in agreement that on a large ship, mediums for as well, there's room for an engineer, but especially when you get into the large ship category, what sort of performance enhancements do you are you expecting from engineering gameplay as far as like rerouting power and coolant?
Well, that's the first
components.
one. The first one you just said.
Yeah. Well,
rerouting power.
But I'm going to start with Nightcub on this one. As far as rerouting power and coolant, to different components doing different things, that aspect of engineering gameplay, what sort of performance enhancements to your ship are you looking forward to? Or do you think we'll see?
I think you, like you said, Attira, like the first thing is, if I want to divert power to shields, here's how I look at it. With the relay network, this is what I suspect, right? Current electrical current works on the system of path of least resistance. Path of least resistance costs the least amount of power to supply a component. So an efficient engineer figures out the relay system to work for them in the sense that, okay, this is a combat heavy ship, weapons and shields. And if it's the, Hammerhead as the example, is like, I don't care so much that I have max power and efficient power to the engines, but I have efficient power to the weapons and the shields, and thereby like those. So maybe like capacitor batteries restore faster, shields restore faster, or they, even if it's just that they take less fuel to power, your ship is more efficient while powering the weapons and the shields. That would be one aspect for the relay system. And the other primarily that I would think for like ship performance is I want the engineer on board my ship that has sat down with a spreadsheet, because I don't want to do it. I'm not gonna lie. I was talking about this in my org the other day. It's like I don't want to sit down with a spreadsheet to figure out what makes the Perseus like the best or maximum capability, maximum efficiency. Weighs all the options of the subcomponents for all my shield generators, each weapon on board, the power plant, quantum drive. Here's what we sacrifice if we do this, but we gain this. I don't want to do that. I want it to exist, and I want to pay somebody that's like, you're my Perseus engine. You are the one that maintains up to date on the latest subcomponents and stuff. And that way, when CIG releases like the next component, the next subcomponent, set of modules, all I do is I look to my engineer that I've been paying, that I have on retainer in AUEC, and like, should we install it? And they get to be like, no, I've already done the spreadsheet math and the testing. Not a thing. We're not doing it. Or it's, we need to upgrade now. To maintain competitive edge, we need to upgrade now. And that to me is ideal engineer related gameplay, on the out of game, which is, I think, the kind of a cool aspect. You build something that somebody sits down and says, all right, let me take all the metadata for Star Citizen and do all the analysis, and then provide that as expertise for value, both in game and out. And then in game, they're also the person that specializes in all that life support, engineering, gameplay that we just talked about. Knows the ship upside down, like from back, stern to bow, and they are the ones that you can count on to basically maintain yourself peak performance and in combat in good fighting shape. Because the other part about this is going to be, by the way, it's not just about the optimization, just looking at spreadsheets of what you have for all components, because the idea is we're going to get to that point where we're in systems where our resources are limited. So the engineer then needs to be able to say, okay, well, we are out of this particular subcomponent, and normally I would restock it with this, but we don't have that available. However, this is available, and this will minimize the impact to our day-to-day performance. Or they understand that we have to replace it with a less desirable component. Immediately, they can tell me, this is what we should no longer do in a fight. This is what we should do in a fight to compensate for the fact that we're no longer using our standard gear.
That's a huge sci-fi trope of, hey, we were able to do this to achieve a 3% increase in thruster performance or what have you, or and then the inverse of it of we took damage to this and we only have X amount of power available to us, because the routing of the systems, and being able to do damage control, lead those issues is, definitely engineering gameplay, but also, you're managing the ship's systems. Like you congratulations, you just got promoted to manager. That's a really interesting aspect of the gameplay, because it ties back into the logistics, because you're the engineer and the captain's like, hey, we are in the null system, and that last fight we lost this, and logistics gameplay. Okay, well, what do we have available at this station? We can make do with this. We won't have, we will have to reroute power from this to that, based off the situation, but we can make it work. That's super cool. That's because we didn't plan ahead to bring we didn't plan ahead to bring a replacement, or that was our replacement. Like that's cool as hell, and I think it's definitely something we're going to see, not in 4.0 and not with 4.0 level logistics and resource management, but in the not too distant future, because that's not something that CIG has to build into the game. That's player generated gameplay by being good at that and knowing that information, and that will your reputation will precede you. Somebody will give a review on Angie's List for you as a ship's engineer in Star Citizen.
Oh, you just gave Chris Roberts another bad idea.
Well, they have a rep system, and that's the thing that's what I look forward
joke.
to is where you
Yeah.
can, yeah.
The A gang is run by an E4.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is, and it's a mafia.
The E4 mafia aboard your capital ship.
See, it's E5 mafia in the submarine world.
My answer to this
'cause you guys
question is
promote
far
CBG.
less sophisticated than Night Cops,
We
because
do.
this is squarely in his bailiwick. I would just want faster shield recharge times and more thruster efficiency or more thruster power. So
Yeah.
we think about, right, that those are really it. So when I go into a turn and I'm trying to bring my turrets to bear so that I get the most turrets on target as possible, I want to be able to do that quickly, and I want to be able to stop that rotation as quickly as I can so that they can engage. And for a large ship that has a lot of inertia, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And then, and important. And then again, shield recharge times, or reduce the time between, like when a shield goes down and it has that 3 to 5 seconds. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
Before
It's
it begins
basically
to
like a dead time.
recharge.
Yeah.
I want to eliminate that through components. So if I have the best components out there, grade A military technology, right, which we all know is BS, but being able to
Don't give it away.
I know, right? It's the
Now
best.
We're gonna know our secrets. Oh shit!
It's the best. But being able to mitigate that time to almost nothing, so the shields are immediately popping back up. Those are the two things I would want. I'm not so concerned about, for large ships anyway, guns, because that's going to happen eventually, right? But survivability is my key there, and getting that back up. Although being able to rapidly refill capacitors that are holding ammunition, energy ammunition, would also be maybe a third thing.
Yeah.
Don't care about
that would be
afterburner
dynamic based off what's going on.
Yeah.
If you're like, for me, I'm thinking about for, like, say it's logistics gameplay, and you are bringing in your M2 with 2 Nova tanks down onto the planet, and okay, we're not taking fire, we're bringing them here to stage them and everything, but with the atmosphere and the gravity on the planet, like, you could might tell your engineer, be like, hey, I need you to reroute power from shields. We're not too worried about shield recharge, but I need more thruster responsiveness, more power thrusters in order to get this thing safely down on the ground. And because it isn't, the combat is the example that we always fall back on. But if you're in your Orion, when that comes out, and you're in an asteroid field, and there's all these little asteroids running around, you don't need, there's no way you're going to be able to maneuver fast enough, but you need, a greater shield pool, and recharge rate for, asteroids bumping into you, or, something like that. There's all, or, you're in Pyro. We know the Pyro flares are a thing, and, okay, we've got a flare inbound. We need to, move power away from weapons and thrusters, and buff up the shields in order to not take, damage to, in order to not lose relays, because I could totally see that being a thing where if your shields are not powered up enough, you run the chance, it just gives you a probability of losing fuses in your relay system. And then,
I hope you can just run, though. If you run out system away from the star,
I don't know if we're
It
going to
may not be convenient.
a.
No, I mean, but if you should have a warning, right? Stars just don't.
Oh yeah,
Right?
you'll
There's
know it's coming.
usually a
and you'll be
buildup.
like,
So
okay,
if you have
hey,
sensors that give you a warning, you should
Yeah.
be able to turn in quantum to a far point or engage that sexy new quantum whatever we got going on, right? What
Boost.
is that? Boost,
Quantum
right?
boost.
When you shoot out, you're just getting away as putting as much distance between you and that as possible because you may not be running shields designed to deal with flares.
yeah.
I think
Or-
the
or
idea
get
would be
between,
put something
like-
between you and yourself, or
Yeah, planet
yourself
or
and
moon.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love putting things between me and myself. It's fine.
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, put yourself in an OM, put the planet between you.
Yeah.
Or moon or whatever. Yeah.
But you have
Your
to
friend.
have a planet nearby to do that, and with the size
Your
of
friend.
Pyro.
Just tuck in behind the Carrick. Ha
Yeah. Well, yeah, that'll.
You
be
know,
a thing.
and maybe if that might be a thing, if it's like, okay, well, the shields on the carrot can take that, like something with a size 2 or 3 shield can take a solar flare,
Absolutely.
but a Gladius can't. And it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna tuck in, you know, behind the
ship
carrot
in a
and use
long
that
line
shield.
of ships. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be cool. That's good gameplay. I'm down
That would
with
be that would actually be great.
PIG,
gameplay.
make it happen.
That would be great gameplay because it would imply that the Carrick, because probably the Carrick's the only one with sensors to detect that. A large ship would be able to detect that. I don't know that a small ship would. It's not their focus.
Maybe the carrot can detect it farther out.
Terrapin. Terrapin.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if a Terrapin is designed to see those types of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I
We'll
don't
find
know.
out.
I don't know.
Last
It
question.
all depends on the radar. When I do my, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna, yeah.
Last
so many
question
things.
before we wrap up the podcast, and this is related to what's coming out with 318, which we just got this update from the cargo Q&A, and they talked about the soft kill system. So if you haven't heard about that, hop in my Discord and we'll get you filled in. But with the soft kill system, do you guys think that either in 318 or in the near future, we will be able to, if they're giving you the faux version of the relays are down, your ship is disabled, do you think that we'll be able to repair our ships in order to faux replace those relays in order to get back, back in the fight? Or do you think it's a, one and done?
I
I think it's one and done.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think
that's
the
what it
initial-
will be. I think that's what it will be.
I think that's what it will be. I don't want it to be that.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope the soft kill system is quite literally that.
Until they get
a relay
sub-component
goes
targeting and like components are a thing that you can take down, I just don't see soft kill being anything other than the equivalent of they destroyed your power plant, you are a husk, you are dead in the water.
Percentage
There is
based?
no power. Percentage based. Yes,
Yeah.
percentage based.
I would love for them to just say that when you get a soft kill, like every relay in the ship goes out.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's fine.
So the whole ship between the power plant and the whole thing gone. And so you need something, I don't know, on a big ship, maybe 15, 20 relays to get the ship back up and going. For a small ship,
Yeah, and then it's a matter of prioritization about what you get back first, where you put the relays, and that engineering knowledge is going to be huge at that point in time.
that's
to
what I
know
would
which
like.
Star
relays
Trek.
need to go back in first. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I would like it to
we blew a relay on deck 3, but it,
Life support,
the
engines.
the soft kill is, you had a catastrophic power system failure due to it taking too much damage. You had feedback throughout the system, and
yeah, overload essentially. Yeah,
Yeah.
current spikes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
do
don't think that's
that
what it's
we
going to
will
be,
get
though.
that part of the resource management a lot sooner than people think. I mean, we've been using the Hammerhead as the example, and that one's going to be the first one. I don't think it's, with the way that they've been building ships, I don't think it's something that will take long for them to do a wider implementation of at all. I think they're building the system, but then taking that tech and moving out to other ships and larger ships or other large ships is it isn't a you have to rework the entire ship. It's a this this is where this is going to go, and then now we have the component and we just swap it out and the design it'll be ready to go, because that system was built for the hammerhead, with the hammerhead in mind, like 5 years ago. All the ships, since then and probably even before then, have been built with this system in mind. They just haven't had the the relay component, thing working, but the systems are there, and so it's more of we're going to test it out at this tier 0, tier 1 level, and then we'll be doing what we need to do, a little bit here and there for ships to get it working. But the going from that soft kill system to that that fuse system, that's a pretty easy win. You don't have to have physicalized damage. You just have to say that at this damage it triggers this percentage, and then all your power goes out. You have to replace the relays here and here, like it'll randomize, okay, these ones are all out, and then your ship's toast. You replace those and then you're back up. But in the meantime, you've got boarders or whatever coming after you.
Yeah, and that's
what I
thing.
think
It's
is
like
going to be
relay
great.
replacement while borders are happening.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question is, are they going to fix the shoot the door open problem?
Well, they said
I don't know.
The doors unlock.
All doors open. Yeah, all doors unlock and open now or at least unlock.
If you lose on a soft kill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay then. I didn't hear that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, they're working on a mag lock system. So you need power for the mag locks.
That's where it should be. Absolutely. I mean, for now, right?
Yeah.
I think for ships that have multiple power plants, it should be a lot harder, and maybe the lock should be the last thing to go. But yeah, absolutely.
If you
got a one power,
having it so that you don't have to blow the door, you can put the thing on there that forces it open. Like it doesn't have
yeah. Jaws of life, baby.
The mag locks are dead, but the door is closed, and you have to the door has to pry itself open. But once it's open, it's open.
It's open, yeah. Magnetic jaws of life.
But in the meantime,
set it on there, cranks it open.
They're unlocked, and so you can have borders, and so it's a stepwise system. But this first step is a really good step, and I don't think that second step is that far off. But the fact that we can soft kill ships with players in them, and borders can come in and take your stuff. And
my big thing is, though, it all comes back to, I hope if I kill all the borders, I can get my ship going again. Which is why I hope it's like relay burnout. I hope it's like the reason
you'll
the
eventually
ship...
get that, but you're not getting it with this first iteration.
I don't think you are either. I think you're absolutely right. I just hope that eventually it's something like relay burnout and the whole ship's down, and I can go through with my 10 relays on my Carrack and fix my ship and fly away if I kill all the borders. The other thing I would like to do,
if your security team keeps them busy for long enough while you're doing it,
and you fly away and take them with you. The other thing is they need to fix the comm situation on the ship, right? Just because a person enters your ship, this is a tangent, but it's important to the process. They shouldn't naturally be on the ship intercom system, right? So right? Because that's how you know when you've been bored, is when you see somebody has joined the chat, the Carrack chat. Somebody has joined, Hammerhead chat, and you're like, oh, somebody just came on the ship that they weren't supposed to. If you're paying attention, you see that, right? Now there's somebody on your ship. That happened to us once on the Carrack, and the guy was hanging out on the very top deck, right outside the airlock that runs off onto the top deck of the Carrack, and he was just hanging out there, riding along, having a good time. We had to go find him and shoot him, but that's got to go away, right? You don't, just because somebody should be able to, I guess, more to the point, the player should have the agency in their own internal comms to not join network comms via Bluetooth every time they get on a ship. Yep. Right? Your phone doesn't naturally link into every Wi-Fi, should not naturally link into every Wi-Fi system that it comes across.
Some people who don't do that stuff you get on a plane, and then all of a sudden, like 4 people's, headsets are trying to connect to my phone, and it's like,
Right.
no.
So you shouldn't. The pirate would not internally want to connect to your ship's internal comms necessarily, because that means that now that rightly so trigger somebody saying this person's joined your ship, your channel. They should be able to clandestinely board your ship, and you don't know when it's coming. You may, because you are probably looking if you've gone to soft kill and you're being able to see that, but it shouldn't be an immediate this guy's Night Cobb has joined your channel. You're like, oh great, well, I gotta go kill Night Cobb now and then replace all my relays. So just a thought, separate from resource management. That's a problem.
Closing comments, and I'll let Night Cobb start out. Anything else you wanted to add for what you were, any last minute thoughts on resource management or logistics before we close it out for today?
No, I don't have any thoughts anymore on that in the interest of time. I will say I've been meaning to tell you, Tara, I love your shirt.
Thank you.
Really enjoy it. Yeah, I was laughing at it actually early in the podcast when I finally got a chance to read it. I was like, oh, that's a good one. I got to get me one of those.
Yeah, there you go.
Other than that, yeah, nice. Yeah, Thursday's not great.
No.
Just another plug for your charity though. Stack Up Org and stuff like that. You're not the only Veterans Day stream I actually saw today. I saw somebody else. I think it was Aurelia, who's in the Air Force, and a Star Citizen.
We got to get her on.
Yeah. No, I said as much. But she was doing a Stack Up Org Veterans Day podcast too. So, if you're watching and stuff like that, definitely support the charity. It's for a good cause. Mental health in the armed forces is a really big deal.
Yeah.
So
big
we
deal.
need it.
Just a tad.
Yeah. That's all I've got though.
Awesome. Attira Kell, any final thoughts, bud?
This is horrible, but I'm going to say it anyway. Speaking of mental health, what I'm drinking today. You read it? It's Glendronach.
Yeah.
Oh, is that Scotch?
So, yeah, single malt Scotch in a 4-1, so 4th Brigade, 1st Armored Division. I don't know if you can see that.
So first Scotch out of a Highlander glass. I like
out of a Highlander brigade. We were the Highlanders. There's a whole story. Maybe one time I'll tell you guys about how my experience in that brigade. Most of it good. Yeah, just closing comments. I think I'm going to go back to the admin side of things. You're going to pay your engineers a lot. If you got a good engineer who understands a ship like the Idris or the Banu Merchantman, one of these complex, large vessels, they're going to warrant a substantial cut of the profit because they're ultimately going to be managing, as Night Cobb said, a division of people. So probably 15 to 20 individuals, giving them direction, where to focus, right? Ensuring that the right tools are on board, making sure that power flows to the right place at the right time. All of these things are going to be complex tasks. And sure, you can get an NPC with a +5 to engineering, whatever, and he'll do X amount of job and direct other NPCs to do that work. But in reality, having a real thinking human who can adequately prioritize engineering, gameplay, and resource management. And people are a resource, right? You have a finite amount of people that can fix a finite number of problems at a given time. And that person is going to get, not as much as the captain per se, but I would imagine they're going to get far, far more than the weapons division chief or any of that, right? Because they are keeping you alive and making sure you are you're solvent and capable.
Yeah. I don't know if it's in your video or not on Capital Ship, but the highest paid department head, second to the captain, is the engineer officer on most ships.
And that's due to rank? Yeah.
Well, they usually get spot promoted to take the job to be the engineer officer, where the weapons officer, the navigation officers do not. So they make rank faster. They get spot promoted, usually up to lieutenant commander. From lieutenant almost immediately. So they go from 03 to 04 without having to wait their time wait for their promotion cycle, and they get an engineering bonus.
Nice.
It's pretty
So there you go.
significant.
Yeah.
You're
So,
giving Salty all these bad ideas.
Your
You're like,
engineer
wow.
is
I
the
got all these.
ultimate force multiplier on your ship.
He will be. I think he will be. So just keep that in mind if you're watching this on VOD later. As relay gameplay comes on, the guy running around your ship fixing your ship, he should probably get a pretty good cut of the profit. And that'll be my last word.
Well, I don't have any closing comments on the two topics. I think we covered them pretty well. I think it did a little bit better of a job keeping us on task, and we're a shorter episode today, so we're getting there. The goal is to keep us on topic for 40 minutes to an hour, and keep it concise so I can break it up into separate videos. But yeah, just don't mind your flight medics, lol. Yeah, because that's me. I'm the flight medic. I got my medevac hat. But yeah, before we go, just want to remind everyone to, if you're watching this on YouTube or what have you, and if this is your first time hanging out with us, watching the stream, please give a follow, like, and subscribe to help the channel to grow, because helping my channel to grow helps charity, and that's the whole point of all this, is having fun while helping charity. Check out both of these guys, Nightcob and Attira Kell, on their content, which will be linked in the description below. And if you're watching me live right now on stream, in a couple hours I will be back, and we're doing our first co-op game night. Nazarus and Brennan G are going to be hanging out with me. We're going to play some Osiris New Dawn, which is a space-based survival game. Playing that live on Twitch, having a good time. And if you join me on co-op game nights, or if you watch live on Twitch, you can enter into my giveaway, where I will be giving away a copy. Whatever, if you win the giveaway, you get to choose which game you want a copy of, from Steam, of our co-op games list in my Discord. So if you want a chance to win a free game, something that we'll be playing co-op online together as part of my community, come give it a watch, hang out with us, and maybe you'll find that you like the games that we're playing and you want to join us and buy them yourself. But yeah, thanks again for joining us, and we will see everyone again soon for episode 3. We're already in the planning phases of that, and again, I want to thank everyone who donated, subscribed, all that. Appreciate you guys. You guys are the real ones. And thanks again to Nightcob and Attira Kell for hanging out with me on this Veterans Day. Really appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Can I make one more plug?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
As an apology. A Soldier's Opinion EW. It's coming. Last week I sat down with a B-52 EWO operator who served in Shield Storm, and I also sat down with a EA-6B Prowler EWO who operated during the last 20 years. I mean, she's still active duty. So they've given me some valuable insights. I have like 8 pages of notes and something like an hour or 2 of recording. So that's coming. Next week, I'm going to try and finish the script and record while I'm on temporary duty away from my family. And expect that in the next month. I should have it out by the end of November. So
awesome.
That was a solid and well thought out plug. I just want to let you know.
thank you.
Sorry, quick tease.
Well, that's all we've got for today.
I actually look forward to it. I want to watch that one.
Thanks for joining
Pretty
us
cool.
live. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. And we will see you in the next one. 07.
Yeah. See you guys.
Bye.